Hi, I'm Trainer Paul, and today we're going to talk about why you should stop wearing cushioned, supportive shoes for your workouts. So there's three main points that I want to talk about here. For the first one, I'm going to use a little prop here to demonstrate. So the first issue is the support. The support in your shoes sounds like a good thing, but it actually does a lot of harm to your feet and really your entire body and the way you move. So to demonstrate that, I'm going to use this. Anybody that's spent much time in gyms has probably seen in the past where you used to walk into a gym and half the guys would be wearing these big, bulky weightlifting belts. So first off, what was the point of these? Why did people wear these? And why don't they anymore? So the premise was, if you have this, the backside of this belt supporting your lower back, then you're going to be less likely to injure yourself or hurt your lower back. Makes sense, right? See, the only problem is, when the belt is supporting your back, it means your back is not supporting your back, which means you're developing weaknesses, imbalances, and basically a dependence on this belt to do the work, to where anytime you don't use it, or if you're doing just daily functions and movements outside of the gym, then suddenly your back is going to be at a really high risk for injury. So you don't see this a whole lot anymore because it's basically known now that if you don't strengthen your ability to support yourself, you're going to have problems. So how does this come back to your feet? So supporting the arches of your feet is really not that much different than supporting the arch of your back. When you have a shoe that has built-in arch support, it's going to prevent those muscles from supporting themselves, from getting stronger, and even from being able to stretch and shorten as you put weight on them. So where that comes into play, it's not just about the height of your arch and the way you stand. It's going to affect the entire way that you move, your posture, and more. So to give you an example, one common thing that happens when people have weak arches is, let's say you're doing a squat. So what will commonly happen is, as you go into the squat, if your arch muscles aren't strong enough, then they'll tend to collapse, and so your weight will go inward, your foot will flatten, and your knees will dive inward when you squat down, and what's called knee valgus, and that's going to create a lot of problems. One, it puts a lot of stress on your knees because they're no longer lined up between your ankles and your hips, so it can put a little twisting torque on the knees. This actually leads to lots of ACL injuries. And in addition to the injury risk, this also is just going to prevent you from developing the muscles and properly working the areas you want to work, all the way through the hips, the butt, the back, the legs, and then anything that's out of balance in the lower body is then going to spread, and you're going to have upper body compensations too. So it really goes everywhere. Once any one part of the chain is affected, then the entire thing is going to be thrown off, and you could end up with a shoulder problem just because your arches are weak. So that's number one. We got to get rid of having supportive shoes that do your foot's job. The next thing is the cushion in the shoe. So cushion seems like a good idea, right? Like you want to prevent yourself from landing as hard and brace yourself from impact. Problem is, once again, the opposite is what actually happens. When they measure people running with or without shoes on force plates that measure impact, they've actually found, like according to a Harvard study, they found that the impact transient, which is basically the amount of time it takes for you to go from zero load bearing to full load bearing, that the impact transient is 7 times faster on average for somebody running with a traditional cushioned running shoe compared to somebody who's barefoot. So just because the cushion gives you the illusion that you're landing softer and avoiding impact by wearing those, the opposite is happening. It's now like your foot just doesn't feel the impact, so you don't brace for it, you don't have to land softer. If you don't have that cushion, like if you're either barefoot or wearing something like I'm wearing here, these Vibrams, then you're going to have to learn how to land softly, and you're going to feel it, you're going to have that feedback with the ground. I guarantee you go running barefoot, just go run to your mailbox and back. You're not going to let your heel slam into the ground the way you do with a normal shoe. So moving on, another issue of the cushion is that you just don't get the feel of the ground that you need to have. So when you have a big protective layer or barrier between your foot and the ground, you're basically not allowing all of the nerve endings on the bottom of your feet to do their job. So your feet are meant to be able to sense where your weight is pressing into the ground and activate different muscles and different reflexes and to compensate for that. So not only is it going to mean you're going to land harder because you're not going to be able to activate the muscles quickly, your reflexes on landing aren't going to be as good, But again, going into things like squats, lunges, just standing, you're not going to have that feel for the ground, and you're just not going to have as much of a natural movement created from the ground up. And then the third thing is that the shoes don't just provide cushion and support, they actually change the entire alignment of your ankle and your foot. So just about every shoe out there, with very, very few exceptions, has a raised heel. So even if it's slight, it's enough to change the way you distribute your weight. So let's say, like right now where I'm flat, if you just raise it a quarter of an inch even, which most shoes would do at least that, if not more. If you can just raise it a quarter of an inch, you'll see instantly as I do that, as I lift my heels just a little bit barely off the ground, my weight shifts forward. Suddenly I've got more weight on the balls of my feet, my hips move forward out of alignment, which then causes my lower back to arch, to come back to center, and then my upper back has to round, and so on. So everything from down from my feet up through my shoulders, back and neck, are now out of position just because of a little bit of a raised heel that put me out of line. Which also causes your calves to get tight because your ankle never goes fully into neutral position. So you're just going to have tightness and just compensations and imbalances all the way through the system. And again, it's just going to cause injuries. It's going to prevent you from being able to work muscles the proper way. You're just going to have all kinds of issues. So the solution to this is, if you can work out totally barefoot, then do that. If you're going to a gym somewhere where you can't be barefoot, then a couple options that I recommend. One is Vibrams, or we'll just know them as toe shoes. So these are a great option. They're enough to just protect your feet from stepping on something, although you'll still feel it. But there's no support, there's no cushion, so you'll have to provide that yourself. You want to make sure you work into this slowly. If you're not used to doing much without shoes, then take it easy. Don't go running in the beginning. And actually, I'm going to link another blog that I wrote specifically on the topic of running, because that takes a very specific adjustment. Another option, if you don't want toes, is this. This is the Merrell Vapor Glove. This is one of the few minimalist shoes that is actually minimalist that you'll see out there. A lot of the shoes out there are advocating now that they are a minimal barefoot style shoe, but a lot of them really aren't. So this one, again, the Merrell Vapor Glove, there's no support, super thin sole. I could roll it up, stick it in my pocket if I wanted to. So that's another one that I highly recommend. So yeah, there's a couple options there, and there you go. That's why you should start working out barefoot.